All right, we'll get started. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. This is the first of a three-part series called "Understanding Energy Security in the Arctic." In this panel, we're going to be discussing energy security in the Arctic, and very delighted to have a wonderful series of panelists with us today from across the Arctic. And this is organized. This panel is organized by the Arctic Icelandic Arctic Cooperation Network. The AICN is a platform that brings together researchers, institutions from across the North to strengthen collaboration on Arctic issues, a wide variety of topics from energy security to climate security. Um, and so the goal is really to foster dialogue um, throughout this process. And for that reason, we're bringing science, policy, and industry together and essentially making a hub for Arctic issues. As such, this recording or this webinar will be recorded and it'll serve kind of as a resource for anyone who's in need of it, and it'll be on the Share Your North platform. And so, yeah, throughout, just be mindful that any questions that you might ask or anything that is discussed in this will be recorded and published. So, yeah, keep that in mind. So I'm gonna make this rather quick and just introduce our moderator who's going to be kind of leading us throughout the discussion today. That's Lid Rastad. She's an associate professor of Greenlandic and Arctic Studies at the University of Copenhagen in Denmark. Her focus research is on Greenland, on climate change, and the strategies of public participation in that green energy transition. Um, she's also a co-lead of the Fulbright Arctic Initiative, which is a network of professionals across the Arctic, focusing on key issues surrounding energy this time around in this cohort. The initiative collaborates to develop policy recommendations in addressing key Arctic challenges. And so, without further ado, I'll pass it on to Lil. And yeah, take it away.
Thank you, and thank you to all of you for coming here today. Yeah, I just want to introduce very shortly the framework that we're talking about here in energy security, the concept in itself, because it's an important concept that put forward the right of the people in the Arctic to steer their energy choices. And of course, today we would like to understand the diversity in the Arctic when it comes to energy security. So it's a very multifaceted concept that's also interlinked with questions about sovereignty. Um, and um, and there are also in this discussion, we will also think about security as also about many other things that might come to mind from the very get-go. It's also about, food, well-being, culture, tradition, rights. All these things are interlinked. In my own research, I have been looking at Galaslit Nunad and Greenland's energy transition uh, and Greenland's move towards being less a petrostate and more an electrostate. Greenland has in the last many years been moving away from fossil fuels. There's still a lot of fossil fuels being used, but what is interesting, many things are interesting, but for Greenland, energy is publicly owned. It's part of the public purse, like minerals. And so it's a local population who decides how to go about the Greenland's energy potential. And and of course, the local government, Nalakasuisut, and the local energy company, Nukissiorfiit. Because energy choices will be pivotal in the years to come. And especially for Greenland, hydropower has a lot of potential. And So it's really a position of strength for Galaslit Nunat. And Greenland has now decided to ratify the Paris Agreement and formulate its own national determined contributions and own climate strategy. It's really a country with a lot of microgrid. The towns are not as such connected with roads and uh, so it's evolving area, so to say, and energy has been the use of energy has been it's not growing at the moment, but the use of renewable energy is growing. So uh, that's the trend right now. Um, Actually, the shift to hydropower was not necessarily motivated by climate change. In the beginning, Greenland started thinking about hydropower in the 70s after the crisis, energy crisis, and but it is more and more being thought about also as something that could support a green transition for Galaslit. Um, and that will lead me to Jon Ásgeirsson, because as far as I know, that was also the case for Iceland, that the high prices when it came to fossil fuels was kind of pushing for a shift. So I hope you will tell us more about that. But so yeah, I will of course probably introduce you. Jon Ásgeirsson is the Director General at the Department of Energy in Iceland. And I'm sure you have a lot of other hats on and qualities that you can contribute with here. So please share your expertise with us today.
Thank you very much for the introduction. So I'll start with probably the most challenging task of the webinar is to share my screen. I guess that's usually what is the. So do you see my screen now?
Yeah, thank you.
Good. So what I'm doing here is I will just present to you the issues that we are facing now when it comes to energy security in Iceland. And I always find, even if it's a little bit, it's already well known and has been used a lot. I usually like the energy trilemma and how it looks to us now going forward. So do you see the new slide now, just to be sure?
Yeah.
Good.
Thanks.
Perfect. So if we look at the energy trilemma, we are actually have been in quite a good place in Iceland for a number of years when it comes to sustainability, environmental sustainability. And you are absolutely correct. In Iceland, the main energy transition that we have already passed through is the change from in the heating from oil to geothermal, which already started in the mid 20th century, which was quite debated. It wasn't seen as a logical step because you were going from a known technology to an unknown technology, etc., etc. But Iceland started to make it a change to geothermal energy in big extent already in the mid of the 20th century. And you could say that the final push was then in the 70s, during the oil crisis in the 70s. It's when many of the municipal geothermal heating companies were formed, and the heating transitioned over the next 10, 20 years to geothermal. And we also used geothermal to produce some power as well. So when it comes to sustainability, we are in a good place. We have a lot of hydro and a lot of geothermal. So 2/3 of the primary energy used in Iceland is geothermal today. And there are no. This is not going to. I mean, the ratio of sustainable energy, renewable energy, is set to increase in Iceland. And I will go a little bit into that. But so I would say that when it comes to sustainability, we're in a fairly good place. As for affordability, we're already also in a good place, but there are some issues, of course, like we have to strengthen our grid. We have to work further towards the energy transition in transportation, in logistics, etc., land, marine, air, and that requires some investment. And so affordability is an issue that we need to watch. And then security of supply. That's an issue which I will be also mentioning quite a lot, because that's quite important now and high on our radar, and I will explain a little bit why. So the first example is the supply demand balance in Iceland. We are looking at quite a lot of tightness ahead. You see the orange line. I apologize that the graph is in Icelandic. The blue is production of power. The orange line or amber line is our demand forecast. The base forecast for demand, and the red dotted line is a high scenario of demand. You will see that there's a dip now in demand in 2026. That's because one of our large consumers, a large aluminum smelter, has some technical issues. But otherwise, demand is quite high, and you will see that production is hardly keeping up with demand. So that's an issue that we need to face. So we have a lot of mitigation today, streamlining permitting processes, both for production as well as for transmission. In parallel, we need to improve our monitoring and the forecasting, because it's quite important to safeguard the critical infrastructure, households and SMEs, etc., to foresee issues short term, medium term, so that we can make arrangements to make sure at least that these stakeholders will be served with power. We're also increasing focus on deep heat, geothermal research, etc., etc. So another aspect of the energy security is the heating. I already said we basically transitioned to geothermal, but it's not quite true. We still have some places that have not been able to use geothermal energy until now. And these areas are counting on electricity and even oil in some places, in some exceptional circumstances and areas. So there is and there are some the green dots there. They have the district heating, but there are some of the urban areas that are really do not have the geothermal heating around the country. So it's not only in isolated farms, but also urban points. So there is a focus now on closing the heating circle. We have a renewed focus on researching low temperature areas. In Iceland, when we call something low temperature, it is actually quite high. The temperature is usually above 50 to 60 degrees when you drill. So it will be a combination of geothermal energy and heat pumps, etc., etc. So there is an effort in order to close this circle. Then natural hazards, preparedness and resilience because of natural hazards. That's an issue that has been elevated over the last few years in Iceland, because we certainly have a period. We entered a period of an eruptive period in an area in Iceland which hadn't seen an eruption for 700 years. So and we had built a power plant. You can see the steam rising from the geothermal power plant there. The blue areas that you see there, it's the Blue Lagoon. It's a spa. So it's quite important area. This power plant is supplying geothermal heating district heating to about 30,000 inhabitants. So it was quite important to protect that. And luckily, there was preparedness. There was mapping of potential eruptions. There had been plans established about building embankments to protect the sensitive areas. And you see how that has been going until now. So this was taken last year. This photo, you can see the lava going in a circle, and that's because you have embankments protecting the power plant. But we're not really out of this eruptive period yet. So there is ongoing effort of mapping areas, sensitive areas, understanding where lava could flow, having pre-designed embankments. and adapting our systems and processes to learn from this. And one reason to do that is also, and to emphasize that and continue, is because of the geopolitical risks that we're facing. And if we look at the NATO 7 baseline requirements, there are a number of baseline requirements that NATO is now encouraging countries to fulfill. Is the continuity of government and critical government services, resilient energy supply, ability to deal effectively with uncontrolled movement of people, etc. This is a new reality that countries around the world are facing, are thinking about today, and even in Iceland, even if we are far away from the that we've always seen ourselves far away from any sensitive areas. We have to accept that it's a possibility that we need to prepare for this. So, and there is no coincidence that the resilient energy supply is second, because energy is basically the basis for everything that follows. So the government has launched in this working to prepare for that, putting in place actions to be ready, to be able to supply energy to the population under different scenarios. So this is just my very brief presentation of examples from Iceland when it comes to energy security.
Thank you, Jon. I just have a short follow-up question. With the energy development going on in Iceland, do you experience any resistance from the public towards the development
of power or energy production?
Energy, like expanding of infrastructure. And
well, there is the high demand of power. The what I showed you in the forecast is the base demand for energy transition, etc. It's not really taking into account the what you're reading about the AI, etc. But obviously that's a concern. People are thinking about what the energy should be used for, which the government usually isn't really. The government tries not to get involved in such decisions, but there is the understanding that the energy production is there to increase the quality of life in Iceland, basically, and the support economic activities and productivity. So I don't think that there is a high so in the general public is not against energy production per se. But there are debates on what type of energy. Like, we don't have a lot of windmills yet. There is only one large windmill farm under construction now. So there's a lot of discussion about where should windmills be, and we are now dealing with putting up frameworks on deciding how we would enter into that, or how the government could create the framework which is with a consensus, basically.
Yeah. Thank you. We will return to you when we have the debate in the end. Our next speaker is from Iqaluit in Nunavut, Canada, and James Arek is the vice president of Cooperation Services, Kotlek Energy Corporation. And we're so happy to have you here today. So please tell us about your work.
Yeah, thank you, Lil, and Ulakut, Tusayut, Tungaswiti. Welcome to this webinar. It's been very informative so far. So I'm going to try sharing my screen again. Hopefully this works this time. So if you can just confirm that you've got a deck in front of you, we're good. All right.
It looks good. Thanks.
Okay, so very colorful for everybody. So basically, I'm going to welcome you to QEC's layout. So Kotlek Energy Corp is is covering 2 million square kilometers uh, of land mass, 25 communities, which I'll dive into here, this is talking about 10% the size of Canada's land mass. So geographically, I want to give you that perspective and also be able to dive into some of the practical elements that we've put into our operations and to some of the reliability and diesel dependence that our operations manage, but also some of the emerging technologies that we are applying. I'm not going to spend too much time in the history of energy in Nunavut, but I will dive straight into the Nunavut, this slide here, which means Nunavut has no regional grid. So each of the 25 communities that we have are all isolated. So there is no interconnectedness in terms of power and power sharing. And that means also that fuel has to be imported to each of the 25 communities in order for power or energy to be, electricity to be generated. So the structure is, to us, as far as we're concerned, is reliable and but costly and logistically very complex at this point. I wanted to move. This is, I want to spend some time here talking about some of the risks that we have in Nunavut in our system. So really, weather is a big risk for us in terms of outage risk, but also it also complicates our ability to respond to outages. So really, weather has been a real growing or significant issue for QEC in terms of providing power. One community, for example, Clyde River, in 1 year, it experienced 33 blizzard days. And if power went out, it really became, it complicates our ability to respond to that. And last year, we also had a blizzard type of issue in a community where we were inhibited from responding to an outage, which expanded over 3, 4, 5 days, and which really brought complications for our ability to address that. Secondly, we have a diesel reliance exposure issue risk to the global commodity prices. Not only this, but QEC, because of our 25 separate communities that are mutually exclusive from each other, we have a purchase point at once a year that requires us to pay for diesel for all of them, and we have to store them as well. So really, this has thrown a real always a challenge for QEC in terms of having cash in hand, but also having to transport it to each of the 25 communities. Other commodity issues related to QEC has been the global uncertainty in terms of the economy, and has really threw a couple curveballs in terms of interest rates, which has put financial pressures on QEC, but also it threw a supply chain problem going forward. So really, that's been the second. And this second point has really brought complications to energy in Nunavut. The emerging technology side, I say here it has to be Arctic proven. So we're dealing with -40 weather and some communities experiencing blizzard conditions. And to ensure that emerging technologies are reliable in these conditions is a real challenge going forward. For example, batteries have to be able to which is offers a real great option for QEC in terms of accommodating renewables, but also um, being able to manage some of the cyclical issues that renewable energy provides. And really, the technology has to be proven to help us manage these situations. And then we have a single annual sea lift issue here. So 25 communities, and we're not only sending uh, logistics in terms of like diesel fuel, but we're also trying to maintain our fleet of gensets and being able to replace plants. And we've got, I think, 5 communities that are needing to be like we've got um, uh, projects in place where plants are being replaced or needing to be replaced because of the assets being aged, and really, so that really throws. These are some of the energy risks that we have at QEC going forward. Um, I want to make sure that these points were well understood from QEC's perspective and from your perspective going forward. So really, this is very different than what we just heard from Iceland, but this is still in the circumpolar region where we're highly dependent on diesel to help us deliver energy or electricity that helps people live. And so that's, I want to move on to the next one. So, in terms of strengthening the core infrastructure, this is the foundation for any Arctic energy transition. So, really, what this means is our job is to keep the lights on and prepare the backbone for renewable energy. So, really, we have policies in place now that will allow for projects to be uh, um, community led, but also Inuit led. And really, this is the big challenge going forward. We've got new plants that are designed to be able to integrate renewables and modern control systems that can allow us to not only uh, monitor, but also it allows us to control remotely. And this modern control system is also helps us with grid reliability and be able to manage assets going forward. And it also helps us with environmental compliance and cybersecurity resilience and all these other things that are important in terms of um, making sure that we are preparing our um, transition into a foundation that the future investments of renewable led projects and renewable energy is helping us connect, but also keep the heat recovery in balance. I want to move forward here with the exploring every path into the future. So any transition must protect reliability. So really, as mentioned, lives depend on heat, economies depend on electricity, water systems, and essential services. And this transition is not going to be an overnight process for Outlook Energy. And but keeping the lights on in our communities is a real priority. And this is the mainstay of our priority areas in terms of moving forward into our mandate. We know that power in Nunavut is not just about survival, but it's also allowing our people to grow, really. That's, having those foundations in mind. Some of the projects that we're designing are led by plants that are modular and allow us to be able to position us to integrate renewables and reduce diesel use going forward. The hydro energy is still impending for Nunavut, and particularly here in Iqaluit, hydro offers obviously very attractive reliable power base going forward. And for us, we've got challenges around like for Greenland, for example, they have great mountains, but also they have the Sikuyuitok, or sorry, the uh, what do you call it? The this glacier runoff. We don't have that. We only have rain and we have snow melt. And really, that has really been one of the other challenges that we have in terms of hydro. I think for a hydro projects, it really would mean, for Iqaluit anyways, 15 million liters of diesel would be not used if we were to have hydro. And we're engaged in early knowledge sharing and early knowledge just figuring out, would this work in Nunavut? If it does, what would it mean? And hydro is complemented by other renewable technology like solar, wind, and batteries. And for Iqaluit, this is going to be a great pathway for this kind of scale to provide stable baseload power generation. Some of the how am I doing for time? Am
I think you are one half a minute left.
Okay, very good. So I'll quickly
Yeah,
dive into
yeah.
this. So as mentioned, scalable modular hybrid, but also we're focused on around is investing in operation technology that will allow us to enhance our remote capabilities so that we will try and get better at when there's outages, we are very inefficient in terms of responding. And in terms of going forward, we think that the the OT is going to offer great advantages in terms of being able to make us more predictive, capable, uh, uh, and be able to plan around maintenance, but also be able to do better asset management with some of our um, management issues that we have. And really, at the end, I'm going to stop sharing. But what I will say is that energy in Nunavut, we spend just over $1 to produce 1 megawatt of power. And in other parts of Canada, you're looking at 35 cents. And for Nunavut, that's, you get the picture of what energy means and electricity generation means to Nunavut and Nunavut Mute. Thank you very much.
Thank you, James. I think we will go directly to Magnus David, who is research assistant professor of Alaska Center for Energy and Power at University of Alaska Fairbanks. And Magnus, good morning. I would say it's probably early morning where you are now. So
Yes.
please introduce us to your research.
Yes, good morning and good afternoon. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, please. It looks
Yes.
good. Yeah.
Okay, so now after we have heard about the two cases from Iceland and Nunavut, I would like to take a little more holistic view, a more circumpolar view on energy security in the Arctic, more in general. And I think James, why is it not moving forward? Okay, 1 second. You still see the first slide, I believe. Okay. Now I was. Yeah, sorry, my internet connection is a little bit slow. So yeah, James elaborated already on energy security, that it's the backbone of modern society in general. And if you take a look on Arctic areas, we see that it's more than just the backbone for industry, economic development, and for leisure and well-being. It's also a huge component of security and of human well-being. And let me share one of my personal experience. So I made my way up to Fairbanks over Iceland, where I lived for nearly a decade, and now I'm here nearly for a little bit over 2 years in Alaska Fairbanks. And making this way up, you realize that energy here, even if I'm in the more urban areas at the outskirts of Fairbanks, the reliability is a little bit different. I think in a decade in Iceland, I experienced one blackout, and it was no problem because. Can you still hear me, or was I frozen?
It's all good. Just go ahead.
Okay, yeah, because it looks. So in Iceland, I experienced just one blackout over a decade, and the good thing was that electricity and heating system was decoupled. So even if there was no electricity, we got heat. But here in Fairbanks, last winter, we experienced a few days of blackout, and no electricity meant no heating as well, because the oil furnaces aren't working. And it was pretty warm, so it was just minus 10 degrees Celsius. So it was okay for a few days to deal with it. And if you imagine this will happen at minus 40, minus 50, it's a completely different picture. So there you see how important energy security is and how it's related to human security. I think James and Lil already elaborated a little bit on it, on the remote microgrids. And here on this graph, we can see a map of the circumpolar Arctic, and every single red dot is highlighting one microgrid, which means, as James already told you, that it's one community which has no transmission connection to any other community. And in Alaska, we have nearly 200 of these isolated microgrids. And they have a little bit different challenges than regional grids or larger grids like in Iceland or the rail belt here stretching from Anchorage up to Fairbanks. And let's take a step back. And I think now John already showed you the 3 dimensions or trilemma of energy. And I would like to highlight that the hard energy security and the energy reliability and affordability, according to the International Energy Agency definition, it could be combined to uninterrupted availability of energy source at an affordable price. And I think this is highlighting 2 very important aspects, especially for remote Arctic communities, because availability, it's important, as I mentioned before, and to affordability, James elaborated a little bit on it, and I will come to this topic later again. So I think this is the key why we have to look into this topic and figure out how we can supply remote places with a secure energy supply. If we take a little bit more a look on the technical aspects, we can see that often in smaller microgrids, there is a problem with handling the supply and demand because these grids are relatively small. So there is less inertia and less flexibility often in the grid, and it's hard to balance supply and demand. So this can lead maybe to some kind of imbalance or instabilities, especially if we add a lot of non-dispatchable renewables like wind, solar, where we can't really regulate it. And when the wind is blowing hard, we get a lot of energy from the wind turbines, which maybe alternate a little bit the voltage and frequency, which we try to get in the target area either of 60 or 50 hertz. So this can be a little bit a small problem for integrating renewables in smaller grids, because then we need some components to create this inertia, like battery storage systems, flywheels, to balance out these fluctuations. Another thing, when we are looking into energy security, it's that we can divide it into upstream energy security, everything which is prior to the generation process. So this means a little bit more the supply chain of fuels. As James mentioned, in Nunavut, they are heavily reliant on diesel fuels. That's true for Alaska as well. So most communities are reliant on diesel, and especially for inland communities, it can be really hard to get diesel to these communities because we can't barge it in over the sea. So maybe the communities are located on bargeable rivers, then it's pretty easy to ship it in during the summertime. Some communities are not on navigatable rivers, so it has to be trucked in over ice walls, but due to climate change, the opening period of these ice walls, it's getting shorter and shorter, and the ice is getting thinner, so the risk of the fuel delivery, it's getting more critical. In some cases, due to the shortening of the ice road opening, they couldn't deliver all the fuel within one period, so they had to fly in additional fuel, and this is heavily impacting the energy security. On the other hand, the same is true for spare parts, so it's often really hard to get spare parts in these remote communities. That's the upstream energy security. The downstream energy security, it's everything after the generation process, so it's more the distribution system and how to maintain it. So I already touched a little bit on the time horizon of energy security. So prior, I mentioned that for matching supply and demand, we have the short-term energy security, which is kind of the responsivity of the grid, that the grid can respond to variations and fluctuations in supply and demand, which can be either from the generation side, from wind, PV, and other resources, but of course it could be also from consumers when large consumers are switching in and out. But that's pretty normal for all areas. In particular to remote Arctic communities, it's a mid-term energy security. That's a little bit what I was mentioning before. It's a fuel delivery cycle, which is more an annual time horizon for energy security. And some communities, like in Greenland, they often have 2 deliveries, maybe one in the spring when the sea ice is retreating, and the second delivery is in fall before the sea ice comes. That's the same for coastal communities in Alaska. Some communities are on the ice roads, or some communities are on airplane delivery. And then we have the long-term energy security. I think John elaborated a bit on the long-term planning for energy security and how to match the long-term energy demand in Iceland. And that's the same for all places where we look into how do we expect to be the energy demand in future, and how do we have to develop maybe additional energy resources, or which other measurements such as energy efficiency efforts could be taken to match supply and demand over a longer time horizon.
Magnus, can you give us a last comment or sum up?
Oh, is my time already over?
1 minute.
1 minute. Okay. So then I would like to give you one example. Oh, can you see? Yeah, so I just want to give you a few numbers regarding the electricity prices or fuel prices. So one community, for example, Nunavut in Alaska, it's a fly-in community, and there we can see fuel prices up to $4.50. And then you can imagine if you use this fuel, how expensive it will be to generate the electricity out of it. And I think the main, why isn't it going forward? Okay, maybe can you see now the screen with the key takeaways? Yeah, so I think
no.
Nope. Okay, then I will
We still see the last one.
Okay, I don't know what's happening with it. So then I will just give it to you verbally. So I think
Thanks.
the main priorities are that small isolated systems are very vulnerable to disruptions, either from global energy markets, but as well from fluctuation in voltage frequency. So that's why it's really important for them to look into more local energy sources to get a little bit decoupled from a global effect. So this is also related to a grid stability, where we have balancing infrastructure. And of course, energy diversification can help remote communities to get a little bit more resilient to impacts from global market, and also help to reduce the high cost burden, because electricity cost, as James mentioned, that's a huge burden across Arctic communities. And I think that's all for now.
Can you stop sharing, Magnus? Okay, thank you, everyone. Let's thank you, Magnus, for your presentation. Let's start the discussion. We have 10 minutes left, so I would like to start with a question to you, Magnus, about path dependency for Alaska. I mean, can you maybe elaborate a little bit on the energy infrastructure you have now and how that relates to the energy development in Alaska? Alaska seems to have it all, but also now living under a lot of pressure from melting glaciers and other things, so melting permafrost.
Okay, so I try to keep it as a short answer, because that's a huge question with a lot of answers.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so on the one hand side, Alaska is really blessed with energy resources from geothermal, hydropower, wind, fossil fuels. But often there is a problem that we have a mismatch between location where we have the resource and where we have the demand, especially in terms of geothermal. We have the huge potential in the Aleutian Island chain, but most islands have very small communities, and geothermal projects are large-scale projects. And of course, we have a big problem with the path of dependency, because the systems are designed for diesel, and then it's really hard to break through this cycle. And that takes a lot of initial effort, and especially financial efforts. And this is often a big problem, because in the beginning, you might have a problem that the prices are even rising, but you would have a long-term effect of much lower prices. But that's a big challenge often.
Thank you. Any of you guys who want to comment, James or Jon, on the path dependency when it comes to energy?
Well, I think quickly for Nunavut, I think diesel is the only source at the moment, but we've researched into geothermal. There's at this point no known potential for geothermal, and I think wind energy is an interesting opportunity for Nunavut, as well as solar. So solar is very cyclical in the summer months only, and wind is more of a mainstay. So really, we can get wind most of the year. So those are some of the known opportunities in terms of renewable going forward for QEC.
Thank you. There is a very technical question in the chat, and the chat is open if anyone want to ask a question. And this is for Jon. I think, are there any geothermal development in Iceland which can lead applicability to geothermal energy use in northern areas with lower ground heat than is found in Iceland?
So that's where actually Iceland is maybe not at the forefront when it comes into geothermal. It is the use of low temperature geothermal energy. We have been using low temperature, but that we're still talking about 80 degrees plus for direct heating. And we are now starting to go below that temperature area then by adding geothermal with heat pumps. So it's really, Iceland is not the place to look for technical development on using low temperatures. We are basically we are using heat pumps for that.
if I may jump in
Yeah, of
Alaska,
course.
we have a little experience with it. So as of now, we just have one small-scale geothermal power plant, and that's at a resort at Chena Hot Springs. And as far as I know, it's a geothermal power plant for electricity generation running on the lowest temperature with a temperature of something between 70 and 75 degrees Celsius. And one advantage in Arctic areas is the low ambient temperatures. So even if the temperature of the resource is relatively low, but the ambient temperature is even lower, so we have a significant delta T. Yeah, Iceland is very blessed, and what Iceland calls low temperatures, other people are calling high temperature.
Uh, James, I have a follow-up questions to your presentation. You were mentioning projects should be community-led or Inuit-led. Do you feel like you have the funding instruments or instruments to support such a development? And can you update us on that?
Sure. Thank you for that. In terms of like my comments around that, I think we are always looking for partners to help us. We can't do it by ourselves, so we don't have the balance sheet for one, and then the community and Inuit led is there's lots of opportunities there. In our eyes, because really, when it comes to uh, accessing funding, but also getting through the regulatory process. When it's led by the community, it seems to have a lot more credibility with people, and they believe that when they are going through the review process, like it's not just the utility perspective that is leading the charge. It's actually this is what when the community is behind it, we know that it's viable to the community and it's supported by the community if they support it. So really, with the hydro, I will say that the economics are interesting, but in terms of the environment, it's going to leave a big mark on impact. And how does that sit with people and the communities? And this is where we just wait for people to participate, but also this is where community becomes really instrumental when it comes to assessing the viability of these kinds of projects. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. That was a good answer. There is another question in the chat. Would maintenance of renewable energy infrastructure in high rural Arctic areas pose new issues to energy security? And if so, how can they be blessed? Be lessened. Oh, sorry. Um, mm, yeah, that's a very big question. Um, I think we are also in a new situation. I don't know if this necessarily answer to this question, but there was a military exercise a couple of weeks ago in Nunavut, Greenland, and they were exercising how to protect the power plant. So some of these energy infrastructures are now also infrastructure that needs to be secure. There's with the Jon, as you said, the pressure we see now on some of the Arctic communities. I don't know if you want to say more about that.
Well, if I can just weigh in a little, I mean, the um, if the expansion of renewable energy involves transmission grids, there is an obvious issue with maintenance in highly rural Arctic areas. But I doubt that that's going to be the way forward for large scale renewable energy infrastructure. But maybe you probably have a more familiar and more knowledgeable about the probable future development of renewable energy use in the Arctic, Magnus.
Yes, so on the technical side, we can say if we integrate more renewables, the system it's getting more complex, which of course will raise issues about workforce. Is it possible to get skilled workforce to maintain the systems on the one hand side? But as of now, the renewables are mainly addition to the existing diesel generators. So even if they are breaking away, there's still the diesel generator which can supply the community. So as long as it's in addition to fuel saving, it's more increasing the reliability due to redundancy. But of
Yeah, and let's
course,
say, yeah, sorry.
no.
Yeah, so so for example, if you are successful in building up geothermal, even in combination with heat pumps, that is by nature usually decentralized. So that should increase energy security as well.
Okay, guys, we have 2 minutes left, so maybe for if you have a final comment before our host will end the show. We can start with you, Jon Asgeirsson. Do you have a final comment?
Nothing. It was quite informative to learn about the different aspects in the Arctic. So thank you very much for organizing the webinar.
Yeah. And you, James?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to participate in this webinar, and thank you to the audience for having such deep interest in energy. Thank you.
And you, Magnus, all the way from Alaska?
Yes, thanks for the opportunity to share a little bit the Alaskan experience, and it was really great to hear from Nunavut and from Iceland. And yeah, thanks for the great questions and discussion.
Thank you. And now to you, our host.
Yeah, just thank you very much, everyone. I mean, you're thanking me, you're thanking Lil, but it's really you guys that brought this webinar together, and I really appreciate it, and I think our audience as well did as well. Yeah, so one of the key takeaways for me from this webinar is just, how diverse energy realities are across the Arctic. Like, there certainly isn't just one Arctic entity with one reality. I think every region that was discussed today carries a different challenge and a different reality and maybe even different opportunities. And so this is what makes energy security in the Arctic pretty fascinating, is that, despite being in the north, different regions face, different realities when it comes to providing energy to communities. But like what Magnus kind of underlined, no matter where you are in the Arctic, all energy security is based on that one underpinning kind of mantra of uninterrupted, available energy at an affordable price. And I think that's kind of the commonality that ties everyone together in that regard, which is something that I'll take with me as we move forward. But yeah, thank you so much everyone for joining us today. And like I mentioned at the top of the session, this webinar is going to be posted on our platform, Share Your North or shareyournorth.is. And so it could be used as a resource as you carry on in whatever work you do. Please keep an eye out for future events, including webinars that the Icelandic Arctic Cooperation Network is hosting. We host things quite frequently. So, yeah, thank you once again, and this was fantastic. Have a great day, everyone.